Hello and welcome back, ladies and gents, boys and girls, to Cup of TCG. After a long fought day here at Dice and Destiny, we finally have our two finalists in Jess Swandale on Rhinar and Tom on Victor. Going to be an interesting one. Joining me is our brute specialist, that one. We'll get there in the end. Toby Beckham is joining us. How you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm feeling very special after that intro.
Special specialist.
All kinds of special, yeah.
Interesting top 8 that we have here. Viserai, Rhinar, Victor, KO, Bolton, Teklo, Victor, and Arachne. No hero being duplicated. A very even meta spread, which is really great to see. You played in this event, of course, losing out to Jess in the semis. Of course, we are going to be kicking this one off. But how did you find Jess's deck as an ex-Rhinar player yourself?
LX is a strong word. He's my first love. You know, I'll probably go back to him very soon. But yeah, the build that Jess is on is obviously one that we've both known for playing and worked on a lot together. Like this hybrid build that she's building. Obviously, she's playing claws here. She does have the club in the back pocket as well. I'm a huge fan of it. It's exactly how I love playing Rhinar as well. So it's kind of bittersweet to lose to it in the semis, especially on KO after having betrayed Rhinar.
This is the thing. You cheated on your boy with the younger model.
And he made me pay. Yeah. He made me pay. Did the big man in green.
Very true. Interesting turn 0, right? Jess going first and instantly playing a Blood Rush Bellows, getting rid of a 7 packing, which isn't ideal, but of course still activating Blood Rush Bellows.
So yeah, obviously Blood Rush turn 1 is the most dangerous way to play it. It is obviously the highest potential payoff because you get to force through this damage turn 1, even if you can stack those intimidates.
Absolutely.
And obviously get your free draw up and you get tempo to begin with. Obviously, if you don't hit exactly what you need, you do end up using one of your 3 power cards to do so. And yeah, obviously there is the intrinsic thing where you have to discard a 6 to do so. You're discarding your power cards to present damage. Now, Sen packing isn't too bad in this matchup against Victor because Sen packing is an on hit and Victor is, I've heard, pretty good at blocking.
Allegedly.
Some do say. Case in point, the claws are being blocked out quite cleanly here. But I think Jess will manage to squeeze through a bit of damage on this first turn.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't see Tom committing any armor on turn 0. There's bigger and better turns to be committing that into. So just going to be getting the respect 3 block, chipping down 2 damage. Would you say happy to chip through 2 damage off the back of a Blood Rush turn? I mean, pitching 4 cards to do it, right?
I wouldn't be happy. However, those 4 cards pitched would make me a little bit happier. Those 2 Barraging Beatdowns, a Rawhide Rumble, and a 6 to go with it.
Yep.
So I would take that turn 1 with a little bit of ups and downs. You've got a very nice looking pitch stack there.
Yeah.
For 14 turns down the line. Although I know Jess is quite a fan of playing 64 to 68 cards,
right.
Even in these matchups when she's playing the claws. If she can get there with obviously a bit of health to spare, this is how you would finish a game. Obviously with your quad intimidate, double barraging beatdown turn.
Yeah, that would do it. Right.
We'll have to see if she can get there.
Interesting thing there from Tom, wanting to, of course, having a look at the cards that were pitched, but also I believe having a bit of conversation with Jess to be like, well, I think you missed some damage here, and then walked it through. But of course, Jess knows what's going on, how to approach this situation, and wants those cards for later turns.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me very much. Obviously, Tom being my loss in the Swiss, by the way.
Oh, really?
Tom being well aware that this won't be a single cycle game. That Rhinar is uniquely poised amongst all the brutes at being the hero that can knock a game just out of the park from about 20 to 15 life, even through armor with those quad intimidate turns. And so he knows what to look for here. Obviously, Victor gets his own toys to play with, sometimes just slamming a pummel on a choke slam.
Turn 1, by the way.
Turn 1, by the way. And obviously it feels very rough to have blocked with that with that Beast Within as
Yeah.
well. Obviously, giving up that potential Beast Within trigger, discarding it to the pummel. Although many of us who have played Brute will know that if you discard a Beast Within on your first cycle, you will banish 3 cards and lose 3 life.
Absolutely.
One of them will probably be a Blood Rush too. So
yeah, it's a little bit dangerous, right? Like the ceiling of Beast Within is incredibly high, and even higher when you're playing KO, because it does essentially just say lose 1 HP, draw a card. Whereas in Rhinar, without that intrinsic trait that turns your 5s to 6s, it can.
You're playing
hit
a
you
much
for
more
3 or
dangerous
4.
game. Yeah,
absolutely. Like hitting you for 3 or 4 on your card, and in your opponent's turn, drawing 1 card is not enough. One thing that we are going to be seeing here in Jess's hands, you got Ripple Away, and also a Dig Up Dinner, which is something that we saw her play against Dan in the quarterfinals game.
Yep, it's the card that beat me in the semis as well. She
Ah.
managed to use it to put a CNC back into her list and gain enough life to put her to 3, past 2.
I suppose what's better than a remembrance that heals you a little bit, right?
Well, and also that when you're playing club, you can obviously picture blue, gain your 3 life in an ideal world, and then throw at the club as well. That's a 2-card 7.
Yeah.
Good maths.
Fair flesh and blood here. Jess swung with a claw. Tom swings with a hammer. Pass. Like it's nothing too crazy here.
But obviously you do see the intrinsic value of the Titan's Fist over the claw. 4 is sources
bigger than
say
3.
more than 3.
Allegedly.
And as decks go, Victor is the value deck. Like, so this build of Rhinar, which is in itself its own brute math value kind of deck. If the game plays out fairly, tit for tat, Victor does win. However, Rhinar does have these little tricks to help sway the way things go. For example, we get this, what I was talking about just here. You get those 2 resources left over after the Dig Up Dinner. You can throw that into a club, or you can throw it into a CNC. A little bit of disruption. I didn't see. I think did she hit all 3? Didn't she?
Hit all 3. So healed up to 36, 2 send packings, and I believe I can't remember what the card's called. Just play it into him. Whatever ladders.
Pack Hunt.
6, Pack Hunt. Yeah, believe that was the one.
Yeah, Pack Hunt Red. Again, a fantastic card to finish. Now, obviously, that pitch stack from turn 1.
Gone.
Well, it's still there, but just not necessarily in the same order. But maybe Jess is fine shuffling that in and just going, I'll build it again. I'll do it again. Typically, you get time. Victor, obviously, nowadays, they do sway to the more aggressive builds. So you don't get as much space as you would against, for example, something like a Bravo. But you do still block really, really well in Rhinar. You do still get a fair bit of space to set up your pitch stack.
You do a lot of 3 blocks in the deck. Tom, though, of course, running something a little bit better than 3 blocks, that being a shed ton of equipment and 4 blocks that draws him cards. So it's hard pressed to best Victor when it comes down to blocking capability, and some of his power turns as well are very, very strong.
Exactly, like I was saying, if we're playing a numbers game, it is Victor's world. He does the biggest numbers. Giving up a shield here, giving up 1 point of block.
Yeah, got the value out of it last turn.
Damage.
To block the CNC. So
it kind of makes sense, right? Because as we said, we just saw a CNC. 2 send packings have gone back into the deck, but when it comes to on hits, Rhinar's not exactly who you're calling up.
No.
So those little 1 points of block here or there to hedge out on hits probably worth less than just forcing through damage.
I mean, 10 overpower with a cheeky little 2 floating and a card in Arsenal.
It'd be
getting a feeling I know what's going on here.
But what can you do about it, really? Like,
Not
outside
much.
of having the nuts, what can you do? Yeah, like...
Second time that we've seen this now. Pummel going to be coming out very early in this game. Turn 0 and now, I believe, turn 3 for Tom. So while
things lining up really well.
Yeah, absolutely. While Jess...
Tom.
Yeah, for Tom, absolutely. While Jess is going to be making a might token from blocking with the Apex Bonebreaker, is it going to be enough? Just a fat old swing with I suppose a Show No Mercy coming in for, I believe that's, well, as of right
7.
now, 7. Depending on how many cards are blocked with, could pump itself up to 10.
It could, but I can't see a world where Tom sees 7 flat damage, sitting 11 points higher than Jesse, and goes, I'm gonna triple block this.
You never know. You never know.
And this is something I do say a fair bit, is that it's very difficult, by virtue of not having those on hits, for Rhinar to come back from from these positions where he is down on board, for lack of a better phrase. Obviously, in terms of equipment, they're pretty even. Obviously, in terms of life, Jess is down here, and outside of taking a big hit to set up this big turn, potentially in the future, it's really hard for Rhinar to claw his way, no pun intended, back into a game. So those two pummels have really done their job in these first few turns. They've allowed Tom to push damage, they've allowed him to push disruption, allowed him to open up this lead, and then from here we're playing Victor's game, right? Victor can dictate the tempo. If he decides we're playing a numbers game, and Rhinar has no choice but to join in, and unfortunately, like we were saying, Victor has more equipment, he has cards that benefit when they block, and also he has cards that block 4/4.
Very true. I think something that we saw towards the tail end of Oldham being in meta, and I know we're thinking back a few years now at this point, it wasn't uncommon to see them on the blue pummels. Now, I don't believe Victor's going to be running those, purely because of it's a clash miss, and that's something which is incredibly important for Victor. But would you be particularly surprised if we start seeing a couple of Victors just jam a couple of those into the deck to be able to force through some more dominant on hits? Like discarding a card. I mean, sure, Pummel Blue isn't the 4 damage absolute stonk that we know it as, but it still threatens discarding a card and even more tempo for Victor.
9 times out of 10, it's the discard that you want, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
However,
I will say,
right?
It's that Victor's already towing the line with their clash misses, right? You are already playing quite hard and fast with the amount of misses that they're putting into their deck, or it might be misses, but necessarily just attacks that aren't clashing as well as you'd like them to.
Yeah.
And I think on the horizon, a new blue will be finding its way into Victor decks quite soon, via the
Goldman Estate.
The Goldman Estate, yeah.
Very,
so I think if there's gonna
very strong card.
Very strong card, precisely. So I think if there's going to be any blue that does find its way into Victor's deck, it'll probably be that over a blue pummel. Because again, a miss,
Yep.
Virtually going against Victor's game plan of obviously clashing well and getting benefits from blocking outside of obviously blocking.
Incredibly,
I
mean,
it'd be really tough to find space for those cards, especially a card that blocks 2.
It does block 2. Goldmane Estate, of course, releasing in Part of the Mistval very, very soon. Of course, this being ProQuest Season 5, that's not out during this time.
Thankfully.
Yeah, thank God. Visit the Goldmane Estate, a blue 1 cost, which creates a gold on play, and if you control 3 or more gold, you create might tokens equal to the amount of gold you control. Your shield is a gold. So bear that in mind with that card. Very, very strong.
So bring us back to the game real quick. Obviously, we just saw a quickly trade there, both taking a damage each, blocking a Titan's Fist and obviously blocking the Show No Mercy. Jess's first roll of the Scab skins of the game, showing that she is aware that she is behind, because this is
sometimes.
Well, this is typical brute behaviour. When backed into a corner, a brute will roll, because it is a means of getting these points back up. And obviously, as we can see here, Jess has gone Barraging into Claw, trying to buy 2 cards, trying to slow down the next turn. Obviously, we can assume the card in hand could have been either potentially pitched for a second Claw to push more damage. Maybe she didn't necessarily want to Arsenal it. Because as 2-card hands go, they used to be Rhinar's domain, and now, as we can see on the clap back, they're very much Victor's. Like blocking 6, presenting 8. 6 is a blue choke slam. Is pretty good. Still threatens an on hit. Now, obviously, usually Rhinar is more than happy to throw a card or 2 in front of something, trying to play his own 2-card hands.
Yeah.
But like I said before, being behind on life to the extent that she is, Jess is obviously going to be looking for a space to just face tank a hit and play a 5-card hand. probably Blood Rush Bellows, let's be honest.
I mean, ideally.
To try and force through some damage, trying to get those life totals down, and also trying to get some cards out of Tom's hand as well. Unfortunately, something like Chokeslam stops that. Because you 6 damage, I'd be happy. I'd take it on the chin and carry on with the turn. But the losing the potential 6 damage from the Blood Rush would be the big issue here. So you have to play around all of these pseudo on hits that the Guardians do have access to. And that's before we even mentioned Balance of Justice. But...
Yeah, I mean, balances the scales when it comes down to a card like Blood Rush Bellows, right? Drawing those 2 cards and your opponent just going, well, I've blocked with my 2 guard, well, I will crack this head.
I will simply draw 3 more block.
yeah, I will actually block you here. Quite interesting decision point here for Jess, because the fact that she's considering this Chokeslam so much, of course, needs to be cautious about the 6 damage coming in, considering she's only on 26, already 11 points behind her opponent. But also, I believe there's a pummel in hand. So, with that being there, Jess would not be able to play it if the Chokeslam would come out. Looks like it's going to be a 5 block here, a 3 and the Scabbies. So taking 1 down to 25.
Taking 1, so using...
Oh, and actually blocking with the pummel, so taking 2.
Blocking with the pummel, interesting. So taking the 2... Obviously, we'd still be able to pummel the attack, it wouldn't get the buff, so there's a world where maybe you can sneak through the discards, but as I say, as we were saying at this point, being so far down on life, you want to be pushing damage as well as disruption.
Well, notably, the Barraging Beatdown wouldn't have the +4 as well, right? So
precisely. So this is a red Barraging Beatdown into Assault and Battery. So this is a really nice turn ended up for Jess. She's managed to present a double Intimidate turn. This obviously Assault and Battery is coming in for 10, unless Tom throws those 2 cards that he's got left in his hand in front of it.
And discarding the Beast Within as well. So drawing up the CNC.
Beating chest, making that agility token, setting up the next turn, and then obviously being able to then pick a card in Arsenal as well. Now, obviously, you've been happy for any 6 there, really, outside of, I guess, Blue Wrecker Romp, not a great Arsenal card. But Command and Conquer is a fantastic card to start a turn off with. 6, go again, on hit, destroy your Arsenal, into the rest of my hand. I'll take that every day of the week. So this is definitely a hand that can start to get some points back. For Jess here, especially depending on the cards that she's left Tom with. Like if Tom was looking at these 2 cards and thinking, well, this was the backbone of my next turn, I don't fancy blocking with either of them or both of them, we get some damage. And obviously, if he does end up blocking with both of them, then we get to play off of a 2.5 card hand for Tom next turn, which might give Jess a bit more space to, again, keep this ball rolling.
Is this... So this seems to me, in my limited Guardian experience, a pretty decent Civet Steps block here for Thomas, because creating the Quicken isn't going to matter considering there is already an agility there. I suppose with the exception of if Jess has to full block out the following turn, then of course the Quicken would remain on the board. As we mentioned before, Rhinar quite limited in the amount of dedicated on hits that exist in the deck, with the exception of the CNCs, the send packings, I mean the swing big, I suppose, on an on miss. But is this something that you need to think about? Like, okay, how beneficial is giving a Rhinar a Quicken token when the agility is already on the stack?
The agility on the board is obviously neither here nor there, right? Because by virtue of the way that Rhinar plays, he wants to be presenting something each turn. He wants to be either forcing cards out of hand or, as we were saying, forcing a little bit of damage to get to that point where that turbo sort of Alpha Strike turn comes into play a bit faster. But Civic Steppers into Brutes as a whole is a very, obviously, scary option sometimes for these Guardians, because outside of obviously KO, the new kid on the block, having quite a bit of access to his go again, Brutes typically haven't. Obviously, outside of Scabskins, which is a roll, they're usually quite happy to, as I said, trade these 2-card hands, block big, attack big, Arsenal pass, that kind of stuff. As soon as you start chaining these attacks together, as we see by KO, we get some real scary stuff. So holding on to those Civic Steppers and not using them there does obviously give Tom the chance later on in the game to perhaps have an issue and give up a Quicken token where perhaps he doesn't want to. Obviously, he's taken 3 points of damage, so I don't think he's overly worried about that at the moment. Obviously,
also
just running it back a quick sec. What a Tom block with an E strike and a CNC, right?
E strike and a CNC. So with the I forgot what the card's called. Battering Beatdown, Barraging Beatdown.
Barraging Beatdown,
yep.
Yeah.
Effectively turning those 2 cards into 5 blocks by a full blocking out the 10.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Is great, right? Here we go. Off the back of an agility, here comes your Blood Rush. This is exactly the position that Jess needs to be in to be able to kind of regain a little bit of control of this game. Considering it was only a Titan's Fist last turn, she was happy to just eat the 4. And there goes another Senpacking.
That's fine. Senpacking is probably what you want to see there. Outside of, I suppose, maybe you want to keep it as a yellow for a pitch for this turn. We know the card in Arsenal. We see Finals is on 3. So this is a Rhinar Blood Rush, right? Obviously very distinct from Levias and KOs. We are looking for an Intim on the Blood Rush, and then we're looking for a 5/5 and then a finisher. Obviously our finisher, we can only assume, will be a CNC. So obviously no buff from the Blood Rush, but you weaken up the hand with the claws, and then you say, cool, I'm coming for the Arsenal as well. And maybe with 3 cards in hand, Jess will get a chance to Arsenal and then keep the tempo going next turn.
Is there not a position where you would actually open with a normal attack first, purely because you have that agility token and
claws
already have
because of the agility? Yeah, I think perhaps you probably do. Obviously, I don't know
fully what's in Jess's hand, but I suppose, like, if we're thinking blue sky thinking this is like the optimal thing you can do, considering the Mandible Claws already have go again, you would love to be able to play an attack first, right? Not like wasting the double agility.
There might be a world where perhaps CNC opening was the correct line here. Obviously, we don't know exactly what's in Jess's hand. A perfect world is Savage Feast. Like Savage Feast is where you want to be using those quicken tokens and those agility tokens. That ability to pay 1, trigger your Rhinar, and intimidate, cantrip a card, and then obviously have your resources floating at the end of it as well. Turning on claws, which obviously Blood Rush is doing as well, but it allows you to build your own mini Blood Rushes in that regard too. Like a Savage Feast, go again, into claw is still looking at some pretty nice damage, 12 damage off of like 2 blues typically in a Savage Feast. So quite nice. But obviously in this case, we're quite happy to just throw out a claw for 5, go again. Obviously, once we see what Jess pitches for the turn, we can see maybe if the CNC was a stronger option to start.
I mean, either way, Tom's had like a pretty decent opportunity here, being able to intim 1 card away, but having the Balance of Justice to crack it.
He gets the card back, exactly.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, it's probably the perfect timing, I would say, into Rhinar and even KO is to crack your balance on the second Blood Rush, because the first one, it's like, okay, maybe I haven't blocked with it yet, maybe it's not optimal, like we're too early in the game. I mean, especially in this one, right? Jess opening the entire game with a Blood Rush Bellows, you don't want to be cracking your Balance and Justice on turn 0 when you're about to draw up to a 4-card hand. However, in this situation where we're like maybe 5-6 turns into the game, it's not a bad time for Tom to be able to pop this and have a pretty decent return if he does just manage to full block all of this. It looks like a dig up there going to be pitched away to swinging for another claw for 5 after Tom ate that entire 5 damage on the first swing.
Well, yeah, like I said, he's got the life buffer here, right? So he can use this balance quite aggressively to set up what will essentially be a 5.5 card hand, right? Outside of, obviously, we know the disruptions in the Arsenal for Jess. So we'll call it a 5 card hand losing Arsenal if he's not too loath to lose it, or maybe he just throws some equipment in the way and sticks a strong 4 card hand. Because obviously he's blocked with an E strike, so he's playing the potentially go wide options.
Zealous Beltings, your out muscles, I
haven't seen a Z belt or an out muscle yet. Obviously out muscle. Oh, some nice little finger check there for the camera.
My apologies.
I wouldn't see typically out muscle in this matchup because obviously Rhinar is the king of the 6s, so he's quite happy to throw a card in front of that and say no, go again for you. Because so Jess is going to maximize use of her hand. This is an issue that Rhinar's had for the longest time, one that was partially solved by Heavy, is sometimes you just have too many cards in your hand, and without innate go again, it's quite hard to use them all. These wind-up cards allow you to use, quote-unquote, the 6s in your hand to obviously keep tempo for the next turn with an agility token, and in Rhinar's case, force some more disruption with Intimidate. Unfortunately, doesn't hit the trounce, which would have been ideal. Being able to take that block out of hand. Well, and there you go, and there's the reason that Rhinor's sometimes a better clash than KO. Alpha Rampage exists, and nine's a big number. So can at least force a draw on that trounce. No free value for Victor today. Brings it down to an 8-point deficit, and unfortunately still does leave Tom with 2 cards in hand and a Rouse.
Yeah, so that card that's been sitting there for God knows how many turns, like threatening it could be a pummel, a defense reaction even, has just been arouse the Ancients. However, I say just. We're coming in for 7 go again with an E-Strike in hand, and I believe a Thunderquake being the other card. So this is going to be...
can't quite see due to the glaring force of the sun. But
why did we play outside? Why did we
play in the park? Why didn't we play in the store?
It's a blue Thunderquake.
It is a blue Thunderquake. So this is the thing. Obviously, Rouse the Ancients, or most go again options, usually have a magnetic pull for the Scowling Fleshbang, because you're intrinsically you've got this innate desire as a brute to shut down this turn. Because obviously if you play this Scowling and you do hit that blue, you're not just blocking 2 damage on the Scowling, you're blocking
4
7
damage
damage on an E-Strike, or 4 on the Titans, precisely. So if you hit the right card here, you get to really stifle a turn, and hopefully keep this 4.5 card grip left on, and there we go, we hit it. So for the low price of 1 Scowling Fleshbag and 5 life, Jess gets to keep that ball rolling. And now, with balance adjusted out of the way, cleared up by the Blood Rush Bellows, there is a world where, obviously, if she'd hit the Blood Rush here, now we get one that really matters, that actually, pushes the point. And lo and behold, here we go. So this is the thing. We were talking about it briefly before, how obviously balance of justice makes Blood Rush Bellows considerably worse. Essentially, what it makes is, for across all the brutes, the new brute theory is the first one has to really force that bodge break, and if it can't, then the second one really needs to do it, so that you open up the third one, or ideally the second and the third one. Now, obviously, Jess using Blood Rush turn 0 and not getting a great result out of it means that this is the Blood Rush that really needs.
This is the one that needs to push the damage,
to kick it into gear. And unfortunately, it's still not as perfectly set up as she would like, because, as we said, she doesn't have finals on 3. She doesn't have that extra resource to sort of smooth things. She's had to play it off of a yellow as well. So she's obviously really hoping here to hit a blue to facilitate this turn. Pitching a yellow assault and battery makes me think that perhaps that isn't what's happening. But we do get an 8 intimidate go again to start the turn off, which
Not
is
bad.
Again exactly where you want to be. Like, there's a reason that Red Pack Hunt is in KO lists. It's because Intimidate is a fantastic disruption option when you're presenting damage, and Rhinar gets to go, cool, we've already had 1 Intimidate, but what about the second Intimidate?
Absolutely.
And into a deck like Victor, who wants to block, this is even better, because he doesn't even get to choose the cards he block with.
Yeah, notably, one thing we haven't seen Tom play as of yet has been a test of strength. We've seen a trounce. We've seen... Well, I think we've actually only seen 1 trounce. So the trounce and the test of strengths kind of hiding themselves into the deck. We're not going to be seeing one here either, but we are going to be seeing 8 block and a quicken token being created. So this is now 5 and 5. So big fat 10 swing coming straight at Tom's face. Be able to almost level the playing field here to drop him down to 17. This is the momentum that Jess certainly needed. But of course, Intimidate a bit of a double-edged sword, because Tom now has a 3-card hand that he can equally swing back with.
Yeah, brutally unfair. They get the cards back. Crazy, isn't it? If only, can you imagine a piece of equipment that banishes a card from your opponent's hand and they don't get it back?
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
Maybe,
and what,
maybe
you just pitch a blue or something? I don't know.
Just I don't know, play the cards that are intrinsic to the talent in your deck to do so. That would be crazy.
We're looking at you, sure, we're looking at you.
I'm sure we wouldn't see that in print anytime soon. Regardless. Anyway. We obviously see 2 blues go under the blocks there for those attacks. So there's a world where Tom's left here with perhaps 2 cards that he doesn't necessarily want.
Well, we know there's an E-Strike in play, right? Here from Tom. So that's sitting in the arsenal. What those other 2 cards in hand, that's where the question marks start coming out. Is it just going to be...
I didn't see... What was one of the blues, perhaps?
It was a wallet. One is the blue that was that went away, but I don't believe we saw what that blue was in the previous turn. It's a safe assumption that it was a... oh no, it's a Thunderquake, right? It was the Thunderquake and it was T-Strike.
Yeah.
And I don't believe the Thunderquake was blocked with. So Thunderquake's either now on the bottom of the deck or it's still in Tom's hand. Unsure on the modes chosen here. The fact he hasn't drawn a card means it's either the go again or
I'm in
7.
I'm
it's
in
a safe assumption.
5, yeah.
You think it's 5 go again?
Well, I'm in
5 go again into the 4 swing?
Into the Titan's Fist, it would be my guess.
I suppose it depends on what cards in hand, right? Like if that's a pummel.
Didn't choose the cards he blocked with, exactly. Yeah. I mean, if it's a pummel, I assume it probably won't be used on the E-Strike this turn.
I mean, it can't be used on the E-Strike. But...
I'd call that a hunch. I think he'd probably be sitting on that. I mean, the 7 block means that perhaps it was an attack for 7.
Yeah. Who'd have thunk, eh?
But that does then infer that perhaps this card, well, I almost guarantee that this card in hand, now in Arsenal, is not a blue, and is in fact a power card of some description. Lo and behold, it is a Spongle Krongle, a Spinal Crush.
Yeah, seeing Spinal Crush go there is really, really nice. I mean, Tom basically has to block for 7 here. If he wants to get that Spinal Crush back in hand. I mean, he does have the armor to be able to clean block this with 2 cards and armor piece. Does get rid of the Civic Steps, which is notable. And
it would give up a Quicken token. It would obviously break the old Salt and Pepper Steppers. And that would be with a 4 block, right? Because obviously this Sent Packing is coming in for 7, or unless of course you want to throw the finals under it as well, but I think finals probably has a great deal of work left to do in this game.
Absolutely. I mean, being able to float it for the threat of pummel is...
Well, we've only seen 2 pummels after all.
Oh, well, here we go. Trounce and Golden Sun.
A Golden Sun.
Sink, that's a failure, and there's no gold on the field here. These trounces are not working out in Tom's favour, but he does win the second one. Unfortunately, the trounce does not get fully resolved, so gains absolutely nothing from it, and getting rid of another Golden Sun. So some serious power cards being removed from Tom's deck here. And with the Reckless Swing going to the bottom of the deck, Jess potentially has an out towards the tail end of this game.
Yeah, so this is the thing. Like this version of Ryan, like we said, this very block heavy version. Obviously, playing as the claws is the more aggro version because you can't really bring a club into a Victor because he will just outnumbers you.
Yeah.
Jess does have the potential to play to this late game and obviously rely on those Reckless Swings, like push your opponent to 4 and then be blocking. The issue is that would be 13 more points off of Victor in a deck that no longer has any Blood Rushes in the deck. Now, I don't know if Jess has brought in Remembrance for this matchup to bring those Blood Rushes back in, because obviously what's better than 3 Blood Rushes? 6 Blood Rushes. It is a potential thing. Obviously, you don't need to worry about cycling in 6s because you've got your dig up dinners for that. You can rebuild your threat density.
It makes the dig up dinners better as well, right? Removing some of those misses from the
makes them infinitely better. Yeah, precisely. Yeah, exactly. Well, again, obviously we see it is a block. It was a almost clean block there. Taking 1, having to block with 2 agile windups is really, really rough.
That pitch stack is not looking ideal now. That is back-to-back Reckless Swings.
Yeah, so that hand isn't going to be great. But this is where something like Dig Up Dinner again,
shuffling the deck, absolutely,
really helps. Like what's the new Transcend one? Stir the pot. That is just shuffle.
Shuffle.
It's not quite that.
Transcend. But...
not quite as busted and strong as that, but still pretty handy. Almost as annoying as this Spinal Crush.
Yes, now this has been telegraphed for a couple of turns now, of course, it being revealed on the Sent Packing, and then it not being the target of play in the previous turn for Tom. This does just need to be full blocked, honestly. I mean...
kind of. We're looking at this hand for Jess now. As I said earlier, Rhinar loves to have multi-attack turns. Unfortunately, unlike KO, he doesn't really get access to too many of them.
Jess has not been able to resolve a pummel this game. Both of them have been positive so far.
Looking at that pummel, there's obviously a world where if she has a blue and that CNC, she goes, cool, I'll block 6 of that, take the 3, and then come back with the old CNC pummel. but the cards haven't quite lined up for her. I'm afraid. Blues haven't been behaving. She had a couple of quad red hands. That usually you're quite happy to go, cool, I block. Like, that's the beauty of Rhinor's bad hands, is that usually they at least block 12, in that case 11. The issue is that giving a victor a full 4-card grip, even with a card in Arsenal, so 4.5, it is not where you want to be when you're 5 points down and desperately trying to get points back. Those pummels would have been key in that, right? That ability to go, cool, well, I'll trade 6 damage for 6 damage, but mine has an on hit.
Yep.
2 on hits.
Oh, speaking of on hits, here comes one again. Yep. Choke slam.
From the top rope, the choke slam. This time coming in red, so a nice 8 damage.
Last time we saw a choke slam come from the top rope.
Dating ourselves a little bit, perhaps. But no, 2 floating again. We obviously have seen 2 pummels.
Yeah.
Victors are running anywhere between, obviously, 1, 2, 3 of the pummels.
1 or 3 red pummels.
1, 2, or 3.
True. Notably not 4 red pummels, because that's not allowed.
Nope, they've yet to hit the 4 red pummel tech. Any day now, I imagine. The tech will break, or maybe, like I say, the 1 blue pummel might sneak his way back in.
I think with Goldmane, like you made a very fair point earlier, like the fact that Goldmane Estate is coming out and it's already going to be almost forced into the deck because of how strong that card is in Victor that's simply you get to the point where your trounces and your and all of your clash cards just stop working. Well, I mean, we've already seen here with Thomas him missing on multiple trounces this game, and we still haven't seen a test of strength played. So
that's the thing.
That does make the second cycle better, I suppose. But
yeah, in terms of the variants, we obviously have seen. We've seen kind of both ends from Victor this game. Obviously, we've seen him come out of the gate like a bat out of hell, and hit some really nice hands back to back, forcing damage and disruption. But obviously, we have seen him miss on these clashes as well. Now, obviously, Rhinar, not typically a deck that you want to clash with for risk of bumping into an Alpha Rampage, but half the deck are also non-attacks as well, right? So you don't mind spinning the wheel a little bit and testing your luck. I
mean, statistically, the victors should be winning them more. Like the non-attack action variance is lower. Yes, you do have your block cards in the deck. You do have your pummels, but Rhinar's deck is rife with NAAs and a strong majority of the cards only attacking for 6 as well, right? I mean, which almost any attack
to clash.
Yeah, absolutely. Almost any deck. Almost any card that Victor reveals, with the exception of Arouse, should win those clashes against Rhinar.
Really, yeah. Because again, it's 6, right? Rhinar's all about 6.
Yes. It's a good number.
Outside of Swing Big, it's a great number. One of my favourites, actually. But outside of Alpha and Swing Big and maybe the occasional red agile wind-up, everything is locked to 6, because you don't need any higher than that because you're discarding 6s, and let's be honest, most of the cards are in there to be discarded. Which means that even just the litany of Guardian Blues that beat that are enough to kind of dissuade Rhinar from looking for these clashes.
Give me a little bit of insight here, Toby. So obviously Jess is thinking about this block for quite a while. Obviously 2 floating, 2 cards in hand here for Victor. This is threatening pummel. What's Jess thinking about here? Like, is it just worth me chucking everything under the bus? Like, well, I suppose 3 of the cards here.
I think obviously she ended up going for the riskier option of taking the 2 and edging the non-pummel. But I imagine she's thinking, do I overblock this and try and force the pummel, taking 1, losing a card, so that the last pummel's out, or do I essentially, take the there you go, another clash win. Rhinar does love to clash, apparently. I mean, for what it's worth, Jeff was running hot the entire day, so it makes sense in the finals as well. Rhinar came to play. He wanted that PQ win. He really did want it. I could tell because he kicked the crap out of me in the semi-finals as well. So I think by obviously taking that risky line, obviously eating that 2 damage, and she's running out of life pretty quick. Yeah. She does get to present something back, obviously eat a clash and win a clash, fantastic, and set up an arsenal, which means that she can. Because that's the thing. Off of 2-card hands, Rhinor's not going to be pushing that much damage into Victor, especially when he hasn't got his club. So he needs to have these big turns. Precisely. Like a claw for 3 is not where you want to be. There's a world where maybe you don't even present that. You're just quite happy to do nothing and trying to lock a Victor into a hand where he's now got 2 block cards.
Yeah, no hand fixing. Just what you're going to do when there's 2 block cards. You're going to have to pitch them away to be able to actually do anything with your turn, right? Debilitate for 8, pretty to not use the phrase, but debilitating card to play against
annoying,
your opponent.
Yeah, when you're playing a numbers game and your first attack is attacking for 2 less, it's kind of annoying to do. Losing that alpha isn't great either, because that's one of your options for finishing a game. Obviously, Show No Mercy being the other option, and that going back into the pitch stack, which is looking increasingly less likely to be reached as we progress through each turn cycle.
Will Tom win one? Oh, he has. Finally.
There we go.
He's won a clash in this game. Unfortunately, Jess cannot crack her gold to be able to bottom the cards. That is Victor's hero ability. But level playing field now. Both heroes on the gold, pitching away some cards. No floating. Here's a Spinal Crush.
Gives him the chance to play that Spinal Crush off of 2 cards, keeping a card in hand, keeping a card in arsenal. Now, obviously, it could be a pummel. It was arsenaled the other turn. You kind of think that if it was a pummel, it would have been let loose.
I wonder actually if it would have. Like, thinking about it, I mean, it's not getting the optimal damage. There's only 1 card in hand. What does it block? It effectively blocks 1 claw. So waiting for something bigger like this could be good, but clearly not needed. Jess is on too low HP to be really be worrying about that.
I don't think it is a pummel.
I don't think it is either. I think
it's a secret other card.
I mean, it's not common that we've seen Victors on a lot of the defense reactions. Early iterations of the deck were on quite a number of them, but as they begun streamlining the decks to be more consistent with their clash wins, well, I say more consistent with the clash wins. I think Tom's won this game.
Well, it happens. Yeah,
they've removed a lot of them, especially into decks which want to be hitting you quite hard. You need to be hitting back harder, and Rhinar is very much one of those decks.
It's become kind of the consensus that the best defense does in fact turn out to be a good offense. And with access to these disruptive on hits, turns out that something like pummel probably a bit better.
The deck count. Now that's a classic Guardian staple.
It is, but it's a bit of a I don't know. If any deck can fatigue a Rhinar, it probably is something like Victor. But fatiguing a Rhinar is a tough one, because as soon as you say I'm parking the bus and I'm putting a handbrake on, Rhinar goes, what?
Well, I'm intiming your entire hand. Here's
a 4-card hand. And again, she's been doing it quite surreptitiously, but another Barraging beatdown goes into the stack next to that Show No Mercy. So again, and obviously this is what Jess is playing to, right? These 3-card blocks, throw out a Mandible Claw. It's less about the Mandible Claw. It's more about assembling this pitch stack. And it means that if, I can only assume like 5 turns, probably. I imagine they're probably on around like 20, 24, 23-ish cards.
They all came at the same time. They all came together.
Well, one revealed another, right? And there's the tome.
Oh, wow, okay.
She did keep the tomes in. Okay, that makes sense. So then now we're getting a real inclination as to how this Rhinar deck wants to play out its late game. It wants to gain a bit of life. It wants to set up these pitch stacks. It doesn't really want to clash.
While we're on the topic of card draw, with Tome being revealed, how well can a Rhinar use a gold that she's been afforded?
I think it's a lovely little smoothing thing. Obviously, having a gold on a Blood Rush turn is really, really, really nice, and that's coming as someone who just played a ProQuest season as KO, but also of someone who tested a lot of Rhinar before ProQuest season as well. If you do end up by pure luck and happenstance, Boulder Drop makes sense. I think, I think that makes sense. It's just damage, right? We're just going for that. 5 is more than 4, and getting cards out of hand here is quite important for Tom. He knows that he needs to be finishing the game sooner rather than later, because the Golden Suns are out the deck, and there's some blue Macho Grandes, but Jess is obviously playing D-React and stuff as well, so setting up that kind
Something
of
that we haven't seen actually yet is any of Jess's defense reactions, with the exception of the two reckless swings that we know are soon to be coming back
we
around,
barely
right?
constitute. Yeah, we count those as essentially like kill spells.
I was about to say
really.
that's an attack. That's
there's a world where maybe she did try and hedge and go for the full, more aggressive plan. My personal sideboard philosophy into Victor on claws is Blood Rush sort of control, where you do set up 3, maybe even 6 really, really strong Blood Rushes, or you set up 1 Blood Rush and then 2 to 3 doubles to finish a game, like you used to against Oldhim.
Yeah.
But obviously, I don't know what she boarded. Obviously, having not seen the sinks and having seen agile windups, there actually is a world where she did, as I said, present this more aggressive build in the hopes of getting the first sort of essentially being in the opposite position, really like getting the foothold and being able to push the tempo herself. And unfortunately, by virtue of Tom's 2 fantastic sort of like first 2 to 3 hands, didn't quite get a chance to do that.
I was about to say the damage was done very much up front, right? This has been Jess's game to kind of get herself back into, claw her way back, if you would.
I would.
Fantastic. And yeah, Tom has kind of been sitting in the driver's seat for a strong majority of this one. Going to be having to take 3 here to be able to return absolutely anything is Jess, and also getting rid of that Tome of Findhouse. So
losing a tome, blocking with a beatdown. Jess is pitching away the Ripple.
Yeah, the Ripple away. I suppose just to stop any more. Well, is it just pitched away because it's a blue? Like, is that actually why that card was kept over the tome?
Yeah, what barraging was blocked? Was it a red that was blocked with?
I believe it was a red barraging beatdown. It was a Ripple away, and it was also a Tome of Findhouse. So the Ripple away, like knowing that I think that all 3 test of strengths have been used. I think we've still got 1 trounce left in the deck. The Ripple away effect of being able to stop the gold being created and stop that card draw. Not only the gold being created, but the might and the
it
well
has like real tangible use in this matchup.
It does.
If you can, in response to a trounce. Oh, actually, trounce is a defense. There's a block, isn't it? So it doesn't trigger.
It's a defense trigger, so you would get a reaction window to it. It's the same way that you get a reaction window to intimidate on defense, right?
Sorry, I'm doing a bit of on the fly.
On the fly judge calling out.
Research. Sorry, I'm a really bad judge. Action card, yeah. So the Ripple away only count as action cards. So
interesting. So it wouldn't actually.
Yeah.
It wouldn't stop. I see.
It wouldn't stop trounce. It wouldn't stop test of strength.
Wow. Then that, I suppose, brings up an interesting question of why is Ripple away in the deck?
Because it's really good in other matchups.
Fair enough.
Really good into Azalea, really good into KO.
Yep.
And in this particular case, the argument is, why did she not block an extra one with the Ripple away and simply pitch the Tome?
Yep, to keep the
present
Tome
the same amount of damage and keep 1 more life. Because Tome pitches for 2, and in that pitch stack, we do of course see a Show No Mercy, a Barraging beatdown.
There's a sink below.
Now a blue to pay for the Show No Mercy. And yeah, sink belows. Yeah, so I do think a lot of victors are on maybe 3 sinks as part of their defensive package. I saw a few were playing 2 staunches for a little while as well. But obviously 8 dominate, and this is how Tom is going to be looking to close out this game. Now, obviously,
no
failing. No pummel, but 2 cards, 8 dominate, keeping an arsenal for next turn. It's a nice spot to be for Victor.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, really showing the value of Tunic, right? The fact that you can just pitch 2 blues, float your Tunic to be able to play a Macho Grande. I mean, on paper, paying 7 for an 8 power card doesn't seem great, but when you chuck Dominate into the mix and the amount of blues that are in this deck and in all Guardian decks, that's just the nature of the beast, and it really leans into their strengths. We've seen a number of victors actually playing red Macho Grande as well. 7 for 10 Dominate is an absolute Herculean attack.
Yeah.
You really need to try your hardest to kind of block out. Jess has sat on this arsenal for a long time. Is there a
Yes.
universe that this is like a defense reaction, or like even like a reinforce the line or something along those lines? Or is that just not something in the realm of possibility that Rhinar can run?
If I had thought that Jess was playing D-Reacts in this matchup, I would have assumed this was a sync or maybe even a red unmovable for exactly this sort of situation.
Wow, it's not.
But having now seen no presence of Fate Foreseen, sync belows, or anything to the likeness, I can only assume it is just maybe it could be a tome, but I would have probably played the tome by now. I would have run the risk of the scab skins and played the tome.
Low HP, got to get rid of that beast within.
Yeah, you don't want to be sculling that bad boy, especially when that pitch stack is now almost exclusively blues that aren't sixes. It's a tough spot to be in. Like I said it at the start, Rhinar really doesn't like playing from behind, specifically on his claws. His club he's a bit more used to it.
More manageable.
But considerably more flexible, yeah.
What's the outplay here? What's the play line that Jess is hoping to kind of build towards to be able to secure a little bit of a closer game and hopefully then the victory for her? Because Tom has barely taken damage for the last 4, maybe 5 turns that Jess had presented stuff. I mean, sure, we did have like maybe 3 turns in a row, which was simply a claw to rip a card out of Tom's hand. But now that we're seeing 6, like, is there a universe in which Tom just eats this and says, I've got a 5-card hand?
I think the only reason that this is a 6 opposed to a 3 is because Jess didn't have the opportunity to block with those 2 cards, right? Because of the dominate. I think Jess was quite content to play out the rest of this game, blocking 9, presenting 3, and assembling that pitch stack so that when the turn comes and the damage comes in, she can essentially try and go to 1 and assemble this quad intimidate turn to finish. However, by virtue of the way that Guardians work and the way that Victor works, his end game is Macho Grande, red, blue, and of course Golden Sun as well, Terra Sunder 2, to make sure that the game is finished before you get to that alpha turn, which is precisely what's happening. Again, outside of a particularly devious hand from Tom here, would be more than happy to take the 6 and then just present the overwhelming offense that Victor is capable of. I think we've only seen 2 Rouses, so there's a world where there's another Rouse sitting around that could just be an Arsenal, for example.
I was about to say, he likes to Arsenal that card, doesn't he?
We could see, obviously, a myriad of other attacks to push this damage over the line. I mean, the fact that he's deliberating so much implies that this might be a slightly more awkward hand, and which is exactly how Rhinar would get back into the build. Rhinar is like a punisher of poor draws, really. That's kind of where he sits in a metagame at the moment. That's how she managed to eke out that semi-final against me. I had quite a slow start, and she managed to grind me out off of virtue of that. She also didn't miss on Scabskins, by the way.
That'll do it.
Which helps too, but then that's the game we play. So that would be kind of the game plan here on the way out, is that you hope that but just draws a few, I don't know, quad block hands and can't finish off the game. Unfortunately, I think this is one of those games where on deck presentation, Jess had a game plan and had a means of executing, and unfortunately, like I said, those first 3 hands from Victor lined up almost pitch perfect to shut down that game plan, and almost probably immediately made Jess want to have gone with the other one instead, with the D-Reacts and maybe even the club. I don't know. Like, it's unfortunate.
You mentioned about pitch. 16 cards left in Jess's deck. Missed the total count there for Victor, but looked substantially more than 16, especially with the 4-card hand and one in Arsenal also. Is there a universe that this is... Tom is thinking about this so much because this is threatening pummel. I mean, we've only seen 2 of them discarded so far. Well, with the gauntlets coming out as well, it seems like that's what he's expecting. This is clean blocking, and, well, here it is. There is your pummel. So this is hitting for 3 now, because of the gauntlets, and still discarding the card.
And getting the last Rouse out as well. So there we go. So there's something, a little bit of tempo back in the game. It's a little bit of damage. It obviously gets Tom onto a 1.5 card hand, but Tom blocked that kind of exactly how you'd want to. Like, you could almost see that Jess was quite loath to throw out that pummel.
Yeah.
Knowing really that wasn't quite the kind of outcome that she'd liked. Obviously, the two other pummels being paired next to like Command and Conquers or Swing Bigs or anything like that would have been considerably more desirable than that. But we saw those hands where they turned up, and they kind of turned up in rather awkward ones. So there's not much you can do. Like, Victor has that benefit over Rhinar, where he gets to play so many more blues than our Brute does, and so gets to benefit from those kind of less clunky hands.
Absolutely. Titan's Fist swinging here for 4. Jess forced to take the 1, and here comes another dig up dinner. But notably, there should be a lot of non-attack action cards in that grave.
There are a few.
Oh, this. Well, here we see the sideboard. There's no defense reactions in the deck at all, with the exception of the Reckless Swings. I mean, that reveals it to Tom as well, because Jess has to put cards with the same sleeves on this shuffle.
It's
that's
not good.
really
But I think
rough.
Tom's probably already figured that one out. Right?
I think it's a safe assumption. I mean, I think Tom's seen Jess's entire deck now, with it being pitched away. The fact there's only, was 16 cards left in deck. Jess is looking to regain some health here. I mean, going up to 7 would be ideal, and putting a couple more cards back into the deck, a couple more of those threats. I mean, the Alpha Rampage would be amazing to see put back in. Well, there's a Swing Big. That's also pretty decent. There's 1. There's 2. Is it going to hit the 3rd? Are we going to be going to the 7? Oh, the pummel.
But two more attacks. Something like a Swing Big isn't typically as free an attack as you'd like it to be into a deck like Victor, a deck that's quite happy to block 8 and take a quickening token as part of it. But in the late game, it's fantastic, because when all the equipment's gone, we're quite a bit happier to just throw out 2 cost 8. It is pretty silly when you think of it like that. And that being shuffled back into the deck does obviously increase that threat density a little bit more. It does gain a little bit of life too. She is now presenting obviously 6 again, and whilst 6 isn't lethal, it does start to add up.
It does, doesn't
and it might buy a few other cards from Tom. Although the thing is, at this point, it very much becomes a matter of Tom could probably block out 3 cards most hands and come back with Titan's Fist and grind this game out. It's a bit of a rough one. It's the inevitability of a deck like a Guardian and a weapon like Titan's Fist. It's why they're so strong. It's why their late game plan is so successful. It is rather rigid, but it works very well. And whilst this isn't obviously threatening Arsenal, this is still a good 2-card hand.
Very good, especially this late in the game as well, when we saw those Reckless Swings pitched early on, like maybe needing to be used in desperation in times like this. But of course, Command and Conquer reading that defensive reactions cannot be played to its chain link, a thing which many people forget. They just think, Command and Conquer, like it hits my Arsenal, and that's a shame. Oh well, I'm just gonna block it with my defense reaction. You go.
It does even more.
No. I cannot do this.
It does even more.
Potentially a 3-card block here to be able to block out for 9, unless we're seeing some of those 2 blocks and potentially the right swing in hand.
It might be just a hedge on that pummel, and
what is
if
that
it is the
non-attack action
pummel
that's been blocked with?
Oh, I couldn't tell you, Kyle. I couldn't tell you.
I believe it's probably one of the barrage and beatdowns, right?
It could be a barraging, because obviously that tick-up dinner again, ruining the immaculately prepared pitch deck. But another barraging going back to the bottom as well.
We'll be seeing the bottom of that very soon as well. I believe there's like only 10 cards left in the deck at this point.
Jess really doesn't have the life total required to fire off that finishing move per se. It isn't the game plan that she'd want to be playing to. Like when you're playing these wind-ups and stuff, you're looking to play these 5-card hands, ideally off of blood rushes and such, and like maybe even drawing into an agile wind-up, getting the intimidate on the attack, forcing your opponent to take huge amounts of damage and maybe keep a 4-card hand that they didn't necessarily want. And again, she didn't really ever get a chance to do that, and is now sort of sat here playing this endgame where I bet she's really missing her club.
Yes, very true. I mean, this kind of slugfest towards the end of the game, that's where club is so good. I mean, it almost levels the playing field considering there's a Titan Fist on the board, right?
I mean, it's literally a better Titan's Fist. It's a 2-cost 4 over a 3-cost, potentially 4. Like it's a fantastic piece of Rhinar's kit. It's a crying shame that it's overshadowed so much by Mandible Claws. But well, I imagine very soon we'll probably see a lot more of club if KO continues the way he's going.
Yeah. Very true. Mandible Claws, RIP.
As I said, in this matchup, Jess wouldn't have gotten Tom to this point without the claws.
No.
So it's very hard to say.
It's hard to evaluate, right? I mean, you wouldn't be at this point without without the claws, but you may be in a slightly more fortuitous situation, especially towards the late game if you have the club. It's damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? But it is the benefit of a class and a hero like Rhinar and Brute in total to have that flexibility on their weapons. Not many decks have that level of flexibility. I mean, Victor and Guardian is one that does lean into that a little bit more. Of course, can run Nothos and does run a Nothos into those less defensive matchups. But in
Sledge builds as well.
So, I mean, that's copium. But yes,
Grindstone too. Like you've got all kinds of builds for your Guardians that all do different things. Like in this case, for example, I know for a fact that Tom was playing both Titan's Fist and Anothos in his 80, and he was pairing it with Findles and Tectonic Plating either way. So he's obviously playing Tectonic Plating and Anothos for the Anothos for 6 with the Surge.
Oh,
there's the pummel.
There's the Reckless Swing
is there. So staying alive by a sliver is our Jess, but obviously
the deck is also
giving Tom
a sliver.
Giving Tom a 4-card grip. And now drawing into hands that are by no means scripted and probably aren't exactly where she wants to be.
Got a couple of 2-blocks in that hand as well.
That being said, after that start, the fact that she's leveled at all is quite impressive.
Absolutely. Oh, okay. That's a little bit brutal. So not the best of hands here from Tom, revealing 2 Macho Grande blues and not having any floating resource as of yet, a card in their arsenal, but coming in for a rouse for 7 go again. I mean, this could simply be a Titan's Fist and pass and keeping that Macho for the next turn and trying to force that lethal.
I mean, and this is
could be
all Tom has
pitching
to do,
and playing
right?
Arsenal.
Yeah, this is all Tom has to be doing, is just presenting damage here, right? Because he knows that Jess has to block, and by virtue of having to block, she will run out of cards in deck.
Yep.
What he doesn't know, of course, is that she has that second Reckless Swing in hand, which means that technically she has two blocks in her hand, technically, because obviously you're going to block with a Reckless Swing, you have to discard a 6. By virtue of Reckless Swing blocking for 4, that's 2 cards to block for 2 each, which isn't fantastic when you're attempting to block 7 into potentially 4, or maybe even more. It would not surprise me if this might be all she wrote.
Yeah, I mean, the cards in hand are I believe a blue Barraging Beatdown. We've got a blue Talk a Big Game. You've got the Reckless Swing, and I'm unsure on the 4th. It looks like the Show No Mercy. So it would trigger the Reckless Swing. However, seeing those 2 dominate cards in hand, I mean, Jess has got to be thinking about arsenaling the Reckless Swing, right? Just to allow her another turn of staying alive. However, if you look to the bottom of your screens as Jess begins pondering what this block is going to be, it looks like about 4 to 5 cards remaining in the deck. Yeah, Jess is thinking about what the play lines are, how she can get out of this situation, but with a 3-card hand still for Tom, it's looking like this is all she wrote.
This is the definition of a rock and a hard place for Jess, I'm afraid. Because you really do want to obviously sit on that Reckless Swing and then play those last few turns of sort of tit for tat. The issue is, as soon as you throw out that Reckless Swing, Victor knows that you've got nothing left in the tank, right? He knows that that's your last sort of surprise, your last sort of gotcha moment. And from there, it's just Titan's Fist all the way down, because you don't need to pressure anything more than that. So yeah, here comes 1. Jess has gone up alive, which is quite impressive. But back down, T5 makes a lot of sense. And then blocking that 4. She's obviously tasked with a choice here. She could block with the Show No Mercy, take the 1, keep the Reckless Swing, pitch the Reckless Swing to present a bit more damage, obviously then showing Tom that it's going to the bottom.
But there is a world where... You would lose to the Macho in the next turn, right?
Well, precisely. That's the thing, right? So you need to. Oh no, he pitched a macho, or has he got another one in hand?
He had two. He revealed the two blue Macho Grandes on the Rouse the Ancients.
It does need to be.
It needs to be Arsenal.
It needs to be Arsenal.
So this should be the block with the Show No Mercy, and then arsenaling the Reckless Swing, but then only having 3 cards in deck to draw up to. I think it's a very safe assumption, unless something dramatic happens here. This game is all said and done.
Triple red.
Yeah, the triple red draw. I mean, you still have a blue in hand, right? And you have your Arsenal. So depending on what those are, I mean, if that's an E strike in the Arsenal, I mean, then your hand's completely fixed. You just do 5 into 4, 5 go again into 4, and then that's
numbers,
enough.
Yeah, and good numbers will win most end games, right?
Yep.
It's kind of why Rhinar and Brutes as well, specifically Rhinar, I suppose, has always needed Reckless Swing to finish games, because while his maths is subpar across the entire game, Intimidate lets you force through damage, and so when you get to that end game where you can't keep the 4-card hands, you need a little something extra, a little something spicy to force through those last points of damage. And in this case, unfortunately, just couldn't quite get those extra 4 points of damage through.
Still has some armor, but I mean, it's only 2 block across 2 pieces.
She has 2 block, which means that, say for example, she could eat 1 more Titan's Fist here and go to 1, right? And then it means next turn she could block with a card
from hand and Reckless Swing and your equipment, and then she stays alive. But
precisely. So there's worlds where you do that, but the thing is, it's because by virtue of the fact that this is a Show No Mercy, it's not even like you can pitch it to the claw to then.
You could have pitched it and floated the tunic.
I mean, maybe that was the line then. Maybe that was the goal.
Yeah,
but
and pitching away the Reckless Swing. So I think this means
provided that she'll draw into it. But
provided that Tom has the resources to be able to pay for it. I believe. What's this blocking? So it'll be blocking 4, 5, 6. So she will still be alive, but she'll be on 2 with a 2-card hand and a 2-card deck, and that will be it.
Which is probably not sufficient.
Suboptimal, I think the term is.
Not ideal.
The fact that Tom is like respecting this, almost like thinking about the block, makes me think that okay, you've drawn a 4 blue hand, and this might even be the red that you block with.
Oh yeah, maybe. I mean, he obviously he's a very very accomplished player. As Tom,
absolutely top 10 UK, I believe, right?
Played very well on the day as well. Obviously, coming down to our store at Dice and showing us how to play the game.
We had an amazing Shoutout. I mean, we talked about it at the very beginning of this. Top 8 being solo represented by many classes, not having a duplicate. I believe there was 1 duplicate there was 2 Victors, and that was it. Victor, of course, being a little bit of a boogeyman when it comes down to this ProQuest season. Everyone else being completely separate, even having a Teklo inside of the top 8, and an Arachne as well.
Yep. What was it? It was Jake Arms.
Jake Arms. Yep.
Played at Azuri for most of this season. I remember chatting to him a couple of weeks back about maybe blowing the dust off of the coercive tendencies and giving him a crack. And obviously it worked. Like I said, the Mat game being very open, being very skill expressive, rewarding, and understanding of the hero you're playing, as proven by Rhinar doing so well under Jess's tutelage in this tournament and in this finals as well. Unfortunately, there's only so much the big green man can do against 8 dominate.
So she can go to 1 here, blocking with a 3 in hand, and then the 2 pieces of equipment, blocking for 5 in total, taking 3, going to 1, and then having a 3-card hand to potentially swing back and do something completely brutal, but with a 4-card hand, still the Pepper Steppers, still the tunic, and an arsenal to play with.
This is the thing, like, even if there's no equipment left, there is a world where you might be able to
eke some damage through, but
and you need to eke through 4, right.
You need to eat through 4 and then you need to Reckless Swing. And with the amount of cards that are in your deck, that's simply not happening. You need to play 2 of those cards to be able to eat through that 4 damage, pitching away the Reckless Swing. And then at that point, the Reckless Swing, it does nothing. That card is ever so slightly useless. And it looks like, we are going to be getting a cheeky little Scabskins roll, looking for that 2 AP to be able to swing both of the claws. Rethinking it. Waiting a moment. Thinking, actually, yeah, let's go for it. Let's see what we're going to be able to get. Only the second one rolled this game, and there goes the dice. Absolutely miles away. Let's try for a second roll. And does manage to get the 2 APs. So 2 claws could come in. Casual lethal being presented here.
It is presenting lethal. So if the first one comes through.
Oh, wow, there's an Intim on the second one as well if she wants to play the Barraging Beatdown.
Yeah. I mean, it will force 2 cards out, is the thing. So yeah, she will force that. So I don't think Victor plays many non-blocks in his deck, unfortunately.
Yeah, I believe you'd be correct.
But as well, where you leave him with potentially a red, so he doesn't get to immediately Titan's Fist back.
Absolutely.
For 1 more, and obviously we do see the red pack hunt.
And hold the line as well.
So yeah, Victor was ready for this matchup, and by virtue of obviously KO being the deck to beat, Rhinar does get caught in the crossfire. Obviously, Balance of Justice, Hold the Line are fantastic options.
There it is.
For keeping KO in check. They do unfortunately also keep Rhinar in check, and they did so in this game. There we go.
Thomas Hull securing
Hull.
the Dyson Destiny Season 5 Pro Quest. Gaining that PTI to go to Amsterdam, and I talked to him on the day. He was honestly fully committed going to Amsterdam. It was either I win this event or I buy a PTI and I go play in Amsterdam.
He didn't have a chance to go to the last time he qualified, I think, due to I think something in the family.
Something came up. Yeah. Was that that LA or was that Lille that he missed out on? Do you know?
Quite potentially, yes. I haven't a clue.
Understandable.
But I remember him saying that he was dead set on going to this one, as proven by his systematic and tactical dismantling of our local Flesh and Blood community.
No, absolutely. Well, there you have it. Thomas Hull securing the Dice and Destiny Pro Quest Season 5, besting Jess on Rhinar, who had an absolutely stellar run through their side of the bracket as well. Toby, thank you very much for joining me, man. It was a pleasure to have you on board. It was a really interesting game between Rhinar and Victor, and one that we'll definitely have to send back to the think tank to work out how we can edge out a couple of extra points in Rhinar to be able to make it a little bit more favoured.
Oh, I've been in the lab non-stop. Me and Jess, we've been cooking. Don't you worry. Miss Vale, sorry, Mysterious game. Miss Vale is for the brutes, I've heard.
Interesting. Okay, how many brute cards have you got in this set?
3.
Right. Okay. Let's...
What is it? The weak spot one. Weakest link.
Oh yes. There's a couple of 6 power cards, essentially generic 6 powers that are coming into the deck.
Yeah.
Potentially
2
not
cost,
reading brute, but
2 cost, attacks for 6, blocks 3. And if it hits, you get to nab a card with no block in their hand and draw a card.
Just that easy.
It reads very pummelable.
Yes,
in my book.
Absolutely it
very
does.
Pummelable.
Ripping a couple of cards out of the hand is amazing.
So yeah, I obviously very well played for Jess on the entire day, especially considering I got paired into her round 1 and said, well, you're playing Rhinar today. I said, that's a bit brave. Proceeded to beat her, and then obviously she beat me in the semis, so I deserved that, I think. She played it very, very well. She played into a lot of matchups where I would have personally said Rhinar looked unfavoured and won them, like into an Azalea, for example, and into a KO.
Yeah, beat me on the day as well.
And then, despite, I think, you weakening your Claws game plan into a deck like Victor by playing the club, proved that even with a particularly bad opening 3 hands, you can get yourself back into a game like that, and a few hands go better her way, and who knows, she ends up being the one to get that W as well. Like, see, she gets to secure one more pummel, for example, like one decent pummel hand, and the whole game looks entirely different. And obviously, as we saw, Tom played very well as well.
Yeah,
I
mean,
think I need to say that.
no, for sure. I mean, yeah, commiserations to Jess, but congratulations to Tom, because he played an absolutely stellar game throughout the entire weekend. So yeah, that is it from us, guys. That is ProQuest Season 5 done and dusted. We're going to be pumping out some content, I'm confident, after Miss Val releases, only a couple of weeks away now. And then we will be not only at Nationals, but also at Amsterdam as well, with a couple of our players playing directly in the Pro Tour. So should be a fun one. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much, Toby, for joining us. We'll be catching you very, very soon. See ya.